Hello, my name is Dr. Alison Brown, and today, instead of sharing a teach with you, I'm going to share with you a testimony of when I had a supernatural experience back in 1993. Now, I gave my life to the Lord in 1991 in March, not long after my mum had gone to be with the Lord. And about 3 weeks after she had gone, she went to be with the Lord on the 15th of February 1991, just the day after Valentine's Day. And I gave my life to Jesus, to Yeshua, about 3 weeks later. And but I want to share with you today an experience I had in November 1993. Now, just to give you a little background, I was living in Newton Abbot at the time in Devon, and I had a child to bring up by myself. I was a single mother, and he was sleeping at the time. It was evening time, it was in November, and he was sleeping in the room next door, and I was just resting and just relaxing and just praying with the Lord a little bit, when all of a sudden I saw this vision, this very vivid vision. And in this vision I saw leaves. It was autumn time, and I saw leaves blowing about all over a street. But it wasn't England. I knew that in the spirit I wasn't having a picture of a vision of England, because there was white timber houses with a kind of picket fences, and there were these huge trees, maple trees, and all these leaves were blowing about in the street. But the houses were not like British houses at all. And then I quite clearly heard the word of the Lord. He spoke to me, and he said, "I am going to pour out my spirit in Canada." I thought, okay, Lord, you're going to pour out your spirit in Canada. But there's nothing in Canada, is there, apart from snow and ice and Mohicans? And I thought at the time, there isn't anything very much there. You know, it's a bleak nation as far as I was aware. So I just put it on the shelf and didn't think anything more of it. Anyway, 16 months later, in February, this would have been February 1995, I was reading a Christian magazine. I can't remember the name of it now, but in this magazine there was an advertisement for a conference at a place called Sunderland, which is in the north east of England. I was living in Devon in the southwest of England at the time, and the Lord then spoke to me, "I want you to go to that." And I thought, what? Sunderland? You know, at the time I didn't even know where it was. I had to look it up on the map. For all I knew, it could be somewhere abroad. But I quite clearly heard the word of the Lord, and he said, "I want you to go to that." So I thought, okay, I don't know how we're going to do that, because at the time I had a very old car. I still do. Today I have a very old 22-year-old Volvo, which is still going strong, thank the Lord. I just pray over it every day. But back then I had a very, very old car, and it was rusty, and it took all my faith to get to college. I was teaching part-time religious studies at a college in Torquay. And it took all my faith to get to college and back to teach the students. I wasn't being paid very much. I had very, very little. In fact, I'm not sure that I was being paid at all. I think I was doing it as part of my teacher training. And I was teaching religious studies to A-level students at this college. Anyway, you could see the road, and I kid you not, you could see the road through the rusty floorboards as you drove along. And I thought, well, I don't know how on earth I'm going to get to Sunderland in such an old car. And also, I've got no money for petrol. And I have no idea where on earth I would stay. Anyway, I mentioned it to some of my students that I was planning to go to Sunderland. There was somebody called Jon Arnott coming over. Something about some outpouring of the Spirit. And I thought, and I shared with them that the Lord quite categorically told me to go. So by faith, I'm going to try and make it in my old car. Anyway, afterwards, one of my students came up to me, a young man called Daniel, and he said that he would love to come with me. He'd also heard about this outpouring in Canada and stuff, and it tied in with this vision that I'd had almost 2 years before. So I thought, well, it's obvious the Lord wants me to go. Anyway, he offered to pay the petrol, so that was one challenge solved. So I thought, okay, Lord, you must be in this, because where you guide, you provide. And so, and then I had a chat with my family and friends and stuff, and I found out that I actually had an auntie living in Middlesbrough. Now, Middlesbrough is just down the road from Sunderland. And so they suggested to me, well, perhaps my auntie could help out with accommodation. So anyway, I contacted my auntie and my uncle that lived in Middlesbrough. And sure enough, they had some friends. They couldn't themselves because they only had a tiny little bungalow. But they had some friends that had a big house, and they could bless us with 2 bedrooms, one for Daniel and one for myself and my young son, Paul. So that was that sorted. So we set off for Sunderland. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we got to the conference, and at that time my experience of Christianity was very limited. I'd only knew about the Anglican Church, and I went to a Methodist church for a little bit. And so far as I could see, Christianity in the United Kingdom at the time was dying. Churches had very few people in them. Many Anglican churches had been sold and turned into auction houses and shops and residential homes, and etc. And so, as far as I was concerned, Christianity was more or less on its last legs in the UK. At least that's what I thought at the time, because that was my experience. So anyway, we got to this conference hall, and it was a huge hall. It was massive, and there was bleachers, which is raised seats round the sides, and then there was the central hall in the middle. And we got there, Daniel and I, and my young son Paul, and it was packed. There were over 2,000 people there. I thought, is there that many Christians in the United Kingdom? And anyway, we managed to find some seats up on the bleachers, because the service had already begun, and we went up and the people were just singing some hymns and that at the time. We went up to the bleachers anyway and found some seats there. And then one of the leaders came on the platform to speak. The worship finished and people sat down. But then, and we sat down, Daniel and I and my son Paul. And this leader started to speak, and as he started speaking, I noticed that some funny things were going on amongst the congregation below. I mean, some people started to cry, some people started to weep and giggle, but others started to giggle, and I thought, this is very strange. And then I saw other people trembling and even jerking. And I thought, this can't be God. No, the Lord wouldn't have us do weird things like this. And I said to my friend, my student, Daniel, I said, I don't think I want to stay because people are doing some weird things. They're jerking, shaking, trembling. I've never seen anything like this before. And I actually got up to leave. I said to Daniel, I think we've come all this way for nothing. This can't be God. And I got up to leave. But as I started to walk down the aisle to leave, and Daniel, of course, because he was with me and reliant on me for transport and everything and accommodation, he got up as well. And Paul, obviously. But then the Lord spoke to me and he said, look. And I thought, and I looked down upon the people and all these strange things going on. These are my people. And I just burst into tears. And I thought, now I'm joining you with these strange manifestations. Tears just burst. from my eyes. And I thought, Daniel, we're sitting back down. So we sat back down in our seats, and we spent 3 days. The conference was over 3 days, morning, afternoon, and night. By the third day, the power of God, the glory of God was so heavy that there was literally 2,000 people lying prostrate on the floor. And it looked like a hospital case. I mean, if paramedics had come in, they'd have thought, oh my gosh, how can we carry out 2,000 people on stretchers? Because that's what it looked like. And I was just about managing to stand, and then but I could smell something coming from what I thought was the air conditioning units. But it was this wonderful, wonderful scent, like incense. And I looked up and I thought, somebody's put air freshener in the air conditioning units. And then the Lord spoke to me and said, this is incense from my robes as I walk amongst my people. Ah. And then I started bowing. I started to bow. And Jon Arnott, who'd come over from Canada, came up to me and he said, what are you doing? And it just came out. I am bowing to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords because he's coming soon. And Jon Arnott just simply laid hands on me. He prayed for me. He said, I bless this prophetic utterance. And then he carried on walking. How we got back to Newton Abbot, I don't know. But we did in this very rusty old car. It was a miracle. Sometimes I would be driving along normally, and then other times I'd have to slow down and even sometimes pull in, because the glory of God was so powerful in the car. And we were full of the joy of the Lord. Going back, Daniel was laughing and giggling, and I was laughing and giggling, and Paul was laughing and giggling. And if you'd have been a fly on the wall of the car, so to speak, you'd have thought, what on earth, these people are crazy. But we managed to get back to Newton Abbot, and I dropped my student off, and we went back to our little terrace house. And I was met by a friend who was staying with me at the time. He opened the door, and he took one look at me, and he said, oh my God, Alison, your face is beaming. Go and have a look in the mirror. And sure enough, the glory of God was all over me. I looked in the mirror, and then the Lord reminded me of Moses, how the glory was on Moses after he spent time with the Lord for 40 days and 40 nights. I spent 3 days and 3 nights with the Lord, but my face was absolutely beaming. The glory of God was all over me. And the next 3 weeks, I don't know how Paul got to school. I don't know how he was fed, but the next 3 weeks, it was like I was in heaven. And I just couldn't help but read Ezekiel. And one night, as I was laying in bed, the Lord spoke to me, but this time it was very different. It was an audible voice, and the only way I can describe it is that it was like having Niagara Falls in my bedroom. Niagara Falls in my bedroom. It was just he was speaking, the Lord was speaking, but it was like the rushing of mighty waters. And I'm reminded of that passage in Ezekiel 43, and I'll just quickly read it to you. 43, verses 1 and 2. Afterward, he brought me to the gate, even the gate that looks to the east. Now, in Jewish tradition, salvation comes from the east, and Yeshua will come from the east in his second coming. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel came from the way of the east. And his voice was like a noise of many waters, and the earth shined with his glory. Oh, hallelujah. Praise you, Jesus. So I was just so petrified, though. Remember, I was lying in bed. I was so petrified. I just pulled the covers up over my head and I couldn't look as I was hearing the Lord speaking to me through this thunderous water, like this rushing waters. His voice was like Niagara Falls. That's the only way I can. But I don't know what he said to me. Sorry. Even to this day, I've asked the Lord, what did you say to me? I was just so petrified. And I think the Lord knew that I was just so scared that he basically backed off and left. And I was just there lying in bed. Eventually, after a while, I pulled my covers down and had a look around. But the bedroom was just normal, as it was before the appearance of the Lord, this awesome manifestation. But then a few days later, as I was reading Ezekiel, then as I was reading Ezekiel, all of a sudden, that passage in scripture, in the twinkling of an eye, less than a nanosecond. 1 second I was in my room reading from the book of Ezekiel. The next minute I was in heaven. And Yeshua was there. He was standing over to my left, I remember. And, he has a wonderful, wonderful smile. Oh my gosh, when the Lord smiles, this love just absolutely pours from him as he smiles at you. And all I can remember is everything was just so white and so light and so brilliant. I didn't see any green fields. No, the Lord didn't show me any green fields. All I can remember is it was just so white and so light and so bright. And the Lord beckoned me to walk. He came over and he was walking by my side, and we passed two men sat on a stone, what looked like a stone bench, and they were discussing something, and I didn't know quite what they were discussing. One of them looked up at me as we passed, and the Lord then led me to this river. Oh gosh, this river was just crystal clear, sparkling like diamonds. That's the only way that I can describe it. And I could feel the life coming from it. Like I knew that, if you drank from it, it would just be so refreshing, unlike any water. I mean, I've got a glass of water here, but unlike any water in this world, or any river or any spring in this world, just so clear and cool and refreshing. And the Lord told me to drink from it. So I cupped it in my hand, and I could see my hand, like my hand is right now. I could see my hand, and I could see the lines in my hand. But my hand was very different. I could see that the Lord was giving me a glimpse of my immortal body, how my immortal body will be, a body that will never decay, never grow old, never, and live forever, be eternal, never die, never suffer pain or anxiety or worry or tears or mourning or anything, just utter peace. So I took some of this water, and I could just taste it without even putting my head down. I could just taste this refreshing coolness of this wonderful, wonderful water. And then I saw where the source of the water was, and I could see two doors, and I knew then that they were the temple doors, and this water was coming down the steps from underneath these temple doors because they were closed, the doors of the temple. And then the Lord beckoned me to go with him, and we walked on a little bit further. And then we came to this ornate door, and it was slightly ajar. It was very ornate and very tall. I couldn't see the top of it. And the Lord said to me, look inside. And so I did. And inside I saw tables upon tables upon tables, rows and rows and rows of tables, all draped in white linen cloths, stretching out into the distance. These tables were stretching out into the distance. You couldn't see the end. There was no walls because the room was so big. There were no walls. And there was an angel preparing the tables with, and on the tables I could see there were silver plates, silver soup bowls, silver goblets, and silver knives, forks and spoons. And then I looked over onto the other side of the room, and there was a raised dais. And I knew in my spirit that that is where Jesus was going to sit, that I was witnessing the preparation of a big banquet. And that's where Jesus was going to sit with his friends on this raised dais. But in front of the dais was another angel. Oh, by the way, they didn't have wings. Not these angels. They didn't have wings. And there was another angel. And this angel had a silver decanter and a silver goblet. And this angel was pouring red wine into this silver goblet. And I, rather stupidly at the time, I thought anyway, came out with this question for the angel. I said to the angel, what are you doing? And the angel looked up at me and said, I am preparing the supper for the bride of the Lamb, for she is coming soon. Whoa. And with the end of those words, I immediately found myself back in Newton Abbey in my bedroom with the book of Ezekiel, with the Bible opened at in the book of Ezekiel. Glory to God. And I just want to read this to you. Ezekiel chapter 47. Afterward he brought me again to the door of the house, and behold, water it issued out from under the threshold of the house. Remember, in my visit to heaven, I saw the river of life issuing forth out from under the door of the doors of the temple. There were two doors shut, and the water was rushing down over the steps. And then Ezekiel goes on that the waters were to the ankles, and then the waters were to the knees, and then the waters were to the loins or to the waist, and then it was such that you could swim in it. Whoa, swim in the river of life. And there were trees as well for the healing of the nations. Remember the leaves that I saw? They were maple leaves, which were found on the which is found on the flag of Canada. There's a maple leaf on the flag of Canada, which is where God poured out his spirit in I think it was January 1994. I had this vision, the vision back in 1993, November 1993. And then, of course, after going to the conference at Sunderland where Jon Arnott, who came from Canada, and we heard all about the outpouring of God's Spirit. It was called at the time the Toronto Blessing, and then renamed the Father's Blessing. And I went in April 1995 and was blessed. So blessed. And it wasn't long after that my visit to heaven, that the Lord then spoke to me and he said, right, I want you to start a ministry. And I thought, what, me? Do you not know my situation, Lord? I'm a single parent. I'm just trying to bring up a child by myself. I have to believe for the money to go to the next town, let alone to go to the nations, because he said he wanted me to have this ministry that was going to go to the nations. And I thought, how am I ever going to go to the nations? That's an impossibility, Lord. Anyway, River of Life was birthed, because I asked the Lord, what am I supposed to call it? And he said, River of Life, to be a river of love to the nations. And so that's how River of Life International was birthed back in April. I think it's about April the 11th, 1995. And yes, the Lord since that time has taken me to over 30 nations. I've lived in many different countries, including Russia and India and Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Azerbaijan and Europe and Africa, West Africa, Nigeria, Ghana and Kenya and Uganda and Rwanda. And but our mother church is currently in Migori in Kenya, and that's overseen by our Bishop Samson Abonya. And we also have churches in India overseen by Bishop Kansi Sudakagola, and that's in Andhra Pradesh region of India. And most recently we started a work in Greece, so ministering to gypsy families out in Greece. And at the moment I'm recording this from Wales. So yes, it is an international ministry. I've been to America as well many times and ministered at conferences and crusades there. And we've seen wonderful miracles. I don't have time in this video to go through all of them, but we've seen fabulous healing miracles and even body parts restored. So the Lord continues to bless this ministry. This River of Life continues to grow. You can read about a lot of the early part of this ministry in a book that I wrote back in 2000. Oh, I lose track of 2001. Yes, that was it, 2001. So it's over 20 years now. And you can read about it. It's about the early part of our ministry. Diary of a Missionary, it's called. And you can get the book from lulu.com or even Amazon. And the royalties go to our orphanages and our schools and for ministry work and evangelistic work that we're doing all over the world. And more recently, I've been invited to speak at a church called Rhema Resource Church at Hammersmith in London on the 7th of November. I will be there, so if you're in London, you can come and see me in the flesh, so to speak. And the Lord has said to me that he will bless me with a word for the United Kingdom and for that time. And so that's November the 7th. That's at Rhema Church in Hammersmith, near Hammersmith. They meet at all in Hammersmith. But if you go to their website, Rhema Resource Centre, you'll find the exact location of where their church is meeting. And I'm also being interviewed on the radio, on a radio station on the 25th of October at TCR radio station at 11 o'clock in the morning with a lady called Iris is going to be interviewing me. And that's it for now. Oh, and my other book, God's Blueprint, 7 Prophetic Keys, and the Bereshit Prophecy, which the Lord blessed. I'm of Hebrew descent. I'm a Messianic believer, and when I was out in Saudi Arabia, the Lord blessed me with great revelation there, and I wrote a book out of that called The End, Prophetic Insights into the Last Days. Again, you can get that one from Amazon or Lulu. And the Lord's blessed me with so much revelation, deep revelation and insight, looking at the Hebrew language, looking at gematria, numerology, and the Lord's been revealing all of that to me since 1997, when I found out my Jewish roots, so to speak. I found out that my mother actually was Jewish. It was all kept very hidden because of the fear of persecution, of course. And I didn't find out until an auntie of mine died in 1997, and all these papers that were found confirming our Jewish heritage. So you can have a look at that. There's a lot of deep revelation and insight in the book God's Blueprint, my most recent book, 7 Prophetic Keys and the Bereshit Prophecy. And there's loads of videos on my YouTube channel. I've got over 30 videos now, I think, on my YouTube channel, containing a lot of in-depth teaching, a lot of it from a messianic perspective, because I believe that's the perspective that the Lord wants me to teach from, because the Lord has given me so much revelation, deep revelation, through the Hebrew language, and I'm fluent in Greek as well. So I examine the scriptures in their original languages, and the Lord gives me deep insight through the power of the Holy Spirit, and so that I can be a blessing to you. It's not for me to hold to myself, although it is a blessing to me, obviously, but to share it with you, to be a blessing to you. I think almost all of my books are available as ebooks, so you can download them. As long as you've got a computer or a smartphone or something, you can download them from Africa, from India, from wherever you are in the world, America, wherever. And they're very inexpensive, of course, if you have them as an ebook. So I think that's it for today. Shalom from me, Dr. Alison Brown. Shalom. God bless you all, and speak to you again soon. Bye.